This is the European edition of Breaking Banks, the world's #1 fintech podcast and radio show. We bring you the European unicorns, startups, founders, regulators, and leaders innovating the rapidly evolving fintech scene today. A truly localized podcast with both English and local language content, with some of the world's most well-known hosts and influencers in the fintech sector globally. Join us every week as we explore what makes the European Union a phenomenal proving ground for many of the fastest growing fintech plays in the world today. Okay, let's roll.
Hey guys, welcome back to Breaking Banks Europe. My name is Matteo Rizzi. I'm the executive producer of the show. Happy New Year to all of you. This is one of the first shows of the year, but is episode 158. Today we talk about welfare, which I didn't know what it was until a couple of weeks ago, and I have two amazing guests and friends talking about this with me. So Chiara and John, and as usual, a couple of minutes.
Hi Matteo, hi Chiara.
Hey, a couple of minutes each to introduce themselves. Chiara, over to you, country manager, CoverFlex.
Yes, thank you, Matteo. Ciao. So around 12 to 15 years in digital in general, from operations in Groupon to the ramp up and being the GM of WeWork, the platform of co-working, into a B2C platform like Domestika with courses, and now landing in CoverFlex. Pretty much B2C and B2B with different angles. So that's why I think the company overview and the employee overview can be complete, tackling all the points. And super happy to be here with you guys.
Thank you, Chiara. We'll deep dive into what we actually mean with welfare. But before, John Rawa, CEO and founder, welcome.
Hi Matteo, hi Chiara. Thanks to having us. So John, French, based in Portugal since last year, 2022. First part of the career in M&A, a Chinese group, spent a couple of years abroad and also in China. And then got back to Europe, started in the tech space to build. It's my fourth startup today. I've done a bit of blockchain, AI, and most lately fintech. And Rova is a pure fintech proposition for the Portuguese market now.
So as I was candidly saying, guys, full disclosure, I am helping CoverFlex and Chiara with a couple of introduction for the Italian market. But the reason why I did this is because I thought that welfare per se is an incredibly interesting new field, and it is actually a combination of digital financial services, well-being for the employees, and overall, a great tool for small and medium businesses, to thrive, which is the reason why we have this combination of someone who is building a bank for SMEs and someone who basically has built one of the European leaders in welfare. So let's go back to sort of the definition. And Chiara, you go first. What do we actually mean with welfare?
That's a very good point. And I love the way you started the introduction, because so there are two different schools. Someone who identifies in a kind of old school way welfare just as the services granted by a company to the employees, additional or not additional, depending on which is the market, to their base salary. While welfare, to make it working, to make it effective, and to make it appealing and sexy for the companies, and then effective for the employees, needs to be something completely different. So as you said, needs to be a whole 360 approach to the work by itself. So not just to the salary base, to the pay, and to the benefits of the employees. And that's also why, in my opinion, a company who grants welfare to the employees is a company who is implicitly also building welfare within the processes, within their tools, within the culture of the company. So while from a strict definition of welfare is everything that is given on top of a normal compensation, or let's say, yes, to complete the compensation of an employee, while the extended version of the welfare, and that I think is what makes more sense to speak in this context, is the overall creation of a a happy path that then becomes a productive path due to the combination of different factors, not only related to the salary and to the compensation of the employee, but to the environment that the company creates and helps creating.
Thank you, Joan. You have typically two approaches, right, to the welfare ecosystem. One, as yourself, a builder of a startup, which is I wish you will be a multi-million, multi-thousands of people company, but right now is an SME, is a startup that takes care or has to take care of your employees. But way more importantly, you are building a financial services platform for SMEs. And we will talk about numbers a little bit, but we will see that typically small to medium companies are the ones that are sort of constituting the biggest part of this market. So what's your approach and your definition as well?
Yeah, so definition for small businesses. So Rova is doing that specifically, right? So that's our target. We are building this new digital bank targeting only small businesses, right? So within this space, there is an official definition which look at three different metrics, which are generally balance sheet, P&L, the total revenue. I'm generally looking at the number of employees, right? And it's also linked to this welfare approach because it's a people business, right? So this is generally what you find in a small business, and we look at the number of employees, right? So the definition is basically up to 250 employees. You are considered as a small business, but even within this range, there's a huge gap between being a small business and having less than 5 employees, of which you can actually compare with nothing, because right from the point you actually start to scale your business and you increase to, let's say, 5 to 20 employees, it's already another company. Above 20 employees, above 50 employees, you have different thresholds, and those thresholds are very different by industry, where the space you are working, the space you are building in, start to be very different, right? So to your question, Matteo, so the first thing is indeed, thanks to solution like CoverFlex, for instance, as a builder, right, you have access to a new solution in the market to serve the employees, not the user this time, but the employees, with the right tool. We are almost able to serve today the workforce with the same tool that you might find in a big corporate, right? So this is what happens in the market thanks to solutions like CoverFlex. Secondly, Rova is also targeting the small businesses like CoverFlex, and we approach the market a bit differently, right? We don't focus really more on the specific on the welfare part, but we, I think, contribute also to the welfare of the small business, right? What we fix is basically all this banking, admin, invoicing, bookkeeping tax that you generally, as a small business, this is what you analyze. Spend 6 to 7 hours a week, clearing that. Not today, you do that in 5-10 minutes, right? You basically remove this admin task and we improve the health of the employee or the health of the entrepreneur that way.
Absolutely, and actually, yesterday when we were preparing the call, I actually want to give a couple of examples because for some of the auditors, the word welfare related to financial services might be like a completely new. I mean, it was for me. Actually, you understand it's a thing, but you don't understand it's actually a business, and there are actually startups and technologies that are directly addressing that. I actually have 2 SMEs here in Portugal, and CoverFlex actually happens to be a Portuguese company that expanded in Italy with Chiara as well. And it is true that for even the less than 10 employees combined for these 2 companies, every time I had, for example, to hire new employees or find out, the ticket restaurants attributed to each employee, or like the bookkeeping, this is more for Rawa, or the insurance and health insurance for each one of the employees of my companies, you have is a number of one-on-one conversations with usually different providers, right? That makes it the time that you just mentioned, John, like a few hours per week managing this is actually completely true. So I see in front of me, with you two speaking together, almost a one-stop shop, right? Where I have another employee, I just go to the platform and I can say to this employee, hey, this is your insurance package, this is the restaurant you need. And by the way, as a benefit, we have an agreement with that gym, so you can go to that gym and having that discount. And by the way, if you go on holidays, you can have these holidays. And the difference at the end, actually, it is a direct question to Chiara, is actually the fiscal optimization one of the main driver for giving the type of benefit, or is also a whole new experience that you're giving to the employees?
I start taking what John was saying, what you were saying, and I was thinking while you were talking that simplification as a service is a benefit by itself. So what John was saying, the part of making the life of an employee easier from a tool and tech perspective is by itself part of that culture. So that one was one of my premises. To answer to your question, there are a lot of different angles and a lot of different reasons, and just mentioning the mentioning the tax related one is a little bit too small as a selling point. Let's call selling point to make it adoptable by a company. For sure, there are a lot of savings, and for sure, if a company uses these benefits in the smart way, they can save a lot of time. That has as a result giving more chance to spend real money to the employee, because of course those money, we know then it's different country to country, but they have great savings in terms of taxation. But it's not the purpose. So not the companies who are looking just for tax savings are the companies who are granting welfare. It's true that the decision maker, especially for the big ones, is sometimes the CFO, or is a combination between CFO, people, HR managers, but it's not driven just by money. It's driven by culture, it's driven by the need of the company of attraction, retention, and satisfaction of their talents. So one thing is being able to capture them, because you are offering them a set of great things. When I was working in WeWork, so it has nothing to do with pure welfare, but the angle was pretty similar, because a company who was choosing a flexible workspace was a company who was giving to their employees in their job description something big, good for them. In the same way, having a flexible compensation is attractive for the smart employees. So it's a loop of smart choices. A smart company who decides to smart compensate to attract smart talents who are ready to digest that kind of proposal. 20 years ago, we were not ready to offer welfare as a smart compensation, because the whole ecosystem was not ready to accept it and to make them spending their money in there. Today, I do really see it as a virtuous loop where smart players are adopting it. And at the end of the day, yes, there are savings. And at the end of the day, if you look at it from a mission perspective, if you explode it, it means that not only employees, but humans have more money to spend in goods, products, in, as you said before, in booking a flight or scheduling lodging and hotels. So also from an economic perspective, this is really empowering people to spend money. While if you go back 20 years ago, this was promising to people that you are giving to them money, but then they don't have the interfaces or the tools or the way to spend it.
Yeah, I fully agree with you, Chiara, because so first, if I just look at Rova, as a software company, 80% of our P&L cost structure is people, right? Everything we own, the IP we build it through people. It's a very people-oriented business, right? So for me, it's key to indeed to build an ecosystem where the employee, the rover, can thrive, right? Feel comfortable. At the same time, having an HR people management structure which is streamlined, right, organized, and where I can actually retain people and talent, right? So it's a challenge on its own. Just by mentioning that, I got scared myself, right? How do I do that, right? And indeed, we have tool on the market, right? Coverflex is a good example. How to fuel the innovation or the structure, the system you might find normally, which is reserved to more bigger groups, bigger corporates, where you have an entire department working on that. How do I build something more digitized, more automated, where my cost to serve is lower, but I fuel the organization, the smaller organization, with the same type of processes, right? So, and you have done that very well. So that's first. Secondly, today, if you look at the concept of super app, it is possible today. It is possible to make the life of the small entrepreneur easy by combining a set of tools, by not combining only finance, but by combining finance with Indeed. What's the impact of finance on payroll? What's the impact of this on payroll, right? And you are basically building a network. I call it the spider web, where indeed you have the opportunity to leverage basically and to scout on the behalf of this small business what are the best solutions out there, and to build the user experience, right? What is the best experience that I can actually find within a super app? It can be indeed, like Coverflex is doing right now, really focusing more on, of the transparency of what is actually shipped, within this product to serve the user. It can be finance, it can be a lot of different things, but yeah, I think this is where the market is. What is simple in my life every day as an entrepreneur, as an employee? My life is already difficult enough. I need to build, I need to grow, right? How can you serve me by tools, by fueling innovation in my team? Right? How can you help me to streamline these processes? And yeah.
If I can add you a couple of things that I was still thinking while you were talking. Another two components that are, again, improving the life of an employee, so going into a more productive, in a better company life, is procurement. So not just having everything in one, but allowing small businesses, a business of 20 employees doesn't have a procurement team. A business of 20, 25, there is a finance who decides what to do. And if you have to choose a set of 6 different tools in HR to manage welfare, for example, or in your case, to manage all the things that your super app can manage, you don't choose them because it's not scaling, because you have different providers, because it's an operational headache, because you are multiplying costs in terms of reducing. So also from a procurement perspective, is not just a matter of simplifying, but also a matter of streamlining the cost. And the new frontier, and this is something we strongly believe as a selling point of our solution, for example, but that's something I've seen in yours as well, is giving freedom and transparency to the employee. So not just giving to you a tool, not just giving to you money, but also giving to you transparency. You want to access information easily. You want to, especially in an environment like welfare, for example, where the headache of tax, of deductions, of reimbursement is really, so in Italy is the government tries to overcomplicate everything. And every time you find something to solve it, then they overcomplicate it even more. But if you build a system that grants to the employee the whole transparency to get access to the information in a simple way, then this will be a new barrier removed to the adoption. So by removing all these barriers, multiple providers, multiple costs, being able to access by yourself and to do it by yourself, you go deeper and deeper into the adoption, into the usage, into really using. And that's for me the core, the meaning of life and everything. So it is the core of the meaning of welfare. I have it if I can use it. Otherwise, it's just a promise. So it's the difference between something that is granted as a promise and something that is really used.
Let's talk about market, guys, a little bit, because I'm putting myself in the shoes of our auditors, and if I analyze your two companies, so John, you're like a Portuguese-based company. Like digital bank, as you were saying, and your target market is Portugal and Italy, and I know that you have a great on the top of your head sort of SMEs numbers that you want to share, and want you to share it with the audience, because it will the picture will be even more clear. And Chiara Coverflex is a Portuguese company, one of the actually best funded so far fintech companies in Portugal, that choose Italy as the second market. Even if I'm not mistaken, the largest market for welfare is France. There are if I'm not mistaken. So it is interesting, and I want to have both of you, your point of view. How much is the concentration of the SMEs in the different countries that you want to attack, has driven the decision, to implant the business where you guys are? Because you have one thing in common, which is Portugal. And in Portugal, there is one number that I remember: 90% of the economies is with SMEs, right, John?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. And that's a good question. Right? Why Portugal? Why Italy? I love data, and I generally build by being really data driven. And so I'm going to give you some figures. So first, I'm French, right? So I started my career in M&A from Paris, targeting Spain and Italy, France, those three countries, right? And at the beginning of this M&A career, I was doing a lot in the SME space, right? So this is something I have a certain appetite for, right? I'm working in this space for a while, and it's a space which is really dynamic, the SME space in Southern Europe, right? So if you look at the numbers in what you call EU27, right? So the 27 members in Europe, right? So we are talking about 40 million SMEs and freelancers, right? And if you look at the south, right? So Portugal is a perfect example. Portugal is a small country. It's 10 million people, 1.7 million businesses and freelancers.
Amazing.
From which 1.6 million are actually businesses with less than 10 employees, of which 80% are actually businesses which are solo shareholders, right? So this is the reality in the market. And in the US, you have the same 30 million businesses. Out of them, 26 million are solo shareholders, right? So the very small and micro businesses is actually a growing business. And if you look
it is almost a non-digital creators economy, right?
Exactly,
in Portugal.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly, right? So it's a big market. It's 99% of the GDP in Portugal. And if you look abroad, Spain, Italy, France, Greece, so the 5 countries that generally we call Southern Europe or Mediterranean Europe, that's 20 million SMEs and freelancers, right? Concentrated within the 5 countries. So half of the market, half of the entrepreneurs in Europe are actually in Southern Europe. And that's true that when you look at how those markets are built, we have less conglomerates, less big plants than what you might find in Germany, for instance, right? Where the GDP is more close to 50% from those businesses than what we have found in the South, right? So for me, for Rova, it was clear that the South was where the most needs were, and also where the entrepreneurs are in Europe, really.
I add just a couple, so completely copy and completely agree. In our case, since if you think by absurd, our solution can be sold to everyone, not just to SMBs, to corporate, to big enterprises, to single-use persons. But then, based on the work done in the last year, so the experience in Portugal, SMBs are the easiest one, the best one to be tackled, the best one in converting. So then, giving these premises, the total addressable market of Italy became very, very attractive because of the SMEs ecosystem and these different, let's say, this network of around 11 million employees from SMBs compared to the 2 million that is already in Portugal. We also have a couple of other reasons why Italy as a market related to, again, the cost of labor, for example, the savings, as Matteo was saying at the beginning, because the company tax savings in Italy are around 40% and the employee tax savings are around 30 to 60, while in Portugal a little bit less. So a model that was already winning in Portugal could be even more winning in a market with these premises. So tax savings from another perspective. The change in the world in the work that happened in the last years, and Italy has been strongly impacted by those changes. If you think on remote workers versus people who are still working in the headquarters of offices, welfare and the traditional competitors were targeting the workers and the companies in a traditional way. So thinking that they were using their welfare nearby the offices. In our case, for example, and that's also why we aim to build a network that is a network geographically spread in the whole country and not just close to the companies who are our targets. We are doing in this way because of the remote working new asset. So these changes in the working ecosystem made it attractive as well. Plus, the fact we call it just in one word, it's an untapped market. Because even if it's true that we talk about our competitors, the biggest one, who is French, has his most profitable market in Italy and not even in France, it's true. But still, there is a huge white space. It's still untapped. But not only thinking that new solutions, so there are no newcomers with new smart solutions, but also considering companies that are not yet adopting it. Also smart companies, also SMEs, tech, smart companies who are now looking forward to understand it, but they were not doing it before.
What do you think, guys, are in your respective fields, right? The main needs for services and the digitizations for SMEs. You were talking, and for the welfare, like a pure employee compensation part. The point of entry is always the ticket, the restaurant tickets, right? The food tickets. Why? Because obviously, if I give someone 50 euros of food or food tickets for a company is a cost, for the employee is actually a pure money to expend. She doesn't pay tax. The company doesn't pay tax. That's like the no-brainer. But this world has evolved dramatically. We talk about gym and insurance. So, for Chiara is what is the array of services that you guys are plotting, to respond to SME needs? And actually, the same question goes to John. And please go ahead in answering. Where do you see? Because I know for a fact. Because my good friend Megan, is working with you. Megan sort of asked me to what was my view, with my sort of SME CEO hat, what I needed. So what came out from the needs of the SMEs when you guys studied, which services should be implemented first?
Yeah, that's a good question. And you just mentioned Megan, Matteo. This is exactly what we do. The exercise that Megan has done with you, trying to understand your life, your journey as a Portuguese entrepreneur, right? Because this is part of Rova's audience, non-Portuguese and Portuguese, right? So you certainly have been interviewed for one of the audience, and this is what we do, right? So Rova claims to be building the financial super app for Southern Europe, right? So it's very simple. We are not building anything difficult. What we are doing, and this is really where we spend our time, is talking to the entrepreneur, talking to them, trying to understand in their journey, where is the need, where is the challenge in terms of financial needs, right? So if you want to build a financial super app, you need to understand the financial journey of the user, right? And for us, a user is an entrepreneur, and it starts very early in his journey. Right. So, for instance, one of the things we figured out during the interview process is it starts before banking, right? So, of course, we build banking. This is a very regulated space, right? So we start by the most difficult thing to tackle, but it starts actually way before. It starts for us, for instance, from the point where the user, the entrepreneur, the non-entrepreneur, start to actually build in his mind the opportunity and creating an opportunity, which is, I can become an entrepreneur. So then the next question is, what do I do? Am I becoming a freelancer? Am I in the need of now incorporating a limited company? If it's not a limited company, what do I do? Right? So that's the first thing. Then company creation, then opening a bank account, finding an accountant, sending an invoice which is compliant, growing, having maybe invoice factoring, maybe a credit line to grow my business, right? So we looked at the challenges and simply we look at where we have a must to have, must to do, must to solve, where there is a nice to have, which will be later in the roadmap. But eventually the idea is to really fix the entire chain. And unfortunately, in Europe, we have 27 countries, maybe sometimes the same currency, but the processes are very different by country. So what we are currently doing is we look at Portugal, the way you set up a company, the way you open a bank account, the way you send an invoice is very different than how you do that in Spain, or you do that in Italy, right? So I think that's the challenge, but this is how you succeed. You succeed by really understanding locally what are the needs and fixing step after step the journey.
Chiara?
If I think from my angle on the SMB needs, the core one for the company with their employees is having them happy, fulfilled, happy to be in there, recognizing the trust to the company. So recognizing that they are happy because they are in that company. So linking the fulfillment and creating this link between the company and the employee. And to do it, and that's what we are aiming to do. And these are all the different angles of welfare, meal voucher, and all the different products, let's say. You need to serve the employee needs, and there are really horizontal ones. You mentioned the meal one, Matteo, and this is the first one that came in the market, again, years and years ago. And again, this changed because it passed from serving the need of a lunch break, going to the restaurant. Now the need is more shifted to, for example, delivery platforms, online groceries, being able to spend money in the shop nearby your home rather than having lunch break close to your company. So I'm an SMB. I am an SMB that is agile, that is smart. I need to give to my employees the chance to purchase the food and to buy and to have lunch everywhere, not just to do it close to home, too close to the company. Plus, I have to serve their need of learning, for example. Welfare includes this bunch of products related to learning, entertainment. So personal fulfillment. I want to do a course. I want to do a master. I want to go on and study something. This is personal fulfillment of the employee. So the employee can access with his welfare budget to this fulfillment. I'm more fulfilled as an employee, but as a human, I'm more happy. But in the meantime, I'm also bringing more skills and more set of skills that are needed to me as an employee, but also to me as a human. Plus a need of mental health, for example. Talking about mental health, 20 years ago, again, it was a huge dogma, but also 2 years ago, no need to go back that much. For me as a company, building an ecosystem of a healthy environment and providing through welfare the chance also to access to mental health support makes a human feeling better, makes a colleague feeling better, makes a person who works better in a company. So these are a lot of different set of products. And again, just to sum up, the way I can feed this need and the way I can make the employee feeding this need in a fast way, in an effective way, and in a transparent way is to build him an infrastructure that is digital enough, tech enough, in our case, for example, based on a card. And then I will let John commenting on this, but the only way that this chain of needs is fulfilled, in our opinion, is building and providing a tool to the final user. So talking to the B, but then acting for the C is a B2B2C chain of value, providing him with a tool and with something he can really use. The card-based solution, for example, we thought in our case was the path to run.
So you're saying basically that there are no in the same way that I can give the meal vouchers to Carrefour to buy my groceries. Now this paper is gone. I have a card. I suppose, a debit card where my tickets are on it, so I can spend it whatever I want. Is this what you're talking about?
Exactly.
Okay, if this is what we are talking about, then I have my last question. Let's imagine for a second that this, we are just like the three of us, in a room that nobody is listening. I can see here, and is probably not a coincidence that you guys are actually sitting together in this podcast, because this is technically a great two ways potential partnership that goes at the benefit of the SMEs here, right? Because you guys in Portugal have thousands of SMEs, but what you don't do, Chiara, is you don't have bookkeeping, invoicing, the typical services for SMEs. And on the other side, John, you're building an infrastructure for SMEs. And like every good sort of a poster child of a digital bank, you will not build all the services yourself. So in the same time that Starling, used Wealthfront for the asset management of their clients, you're not going to build every single services yourself. And also CoverFlex per se is also a super app, right? Because you're actually an aggregator of services. So I just want you to conclude this show. Talk a little bit about this way of conducting business, which is profoundly different to 10 years ago, where everyone was actually going, on her own way, building the business, and the less sort of interaction they have with other partners and potentially competitors, like, for example, the first thing in a collaboration, but they have, I don't want these guys to know who my clients are, and vice versa. And right now is almost the other way around. Now, don't you think that this new way of doing business is what makes the market more efficient, at the same time benefit the user, the client at the end, John?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we come back to the same point, which is the user journey, right? We don't build a product which is aiming to solve a specific point. We want to improve the journey, right? So, and if you look at Trova, for instance, indeed, we want to tackle the financial journey of the entrepreneur, but you have so many paths to fix, right? Hein is something, right? Financial is indeed something that you have to fix for the small entrepreneur. What CoverFlex is doing is more on the welfare side, right? Sales, right? How do I improve myself? So the idea is to build, I think, more a marketplace eventually, which is going to serve the entrepreneur. It's a growing market. As we said, it's already today in our Western economies where you have really the GDP coming from, right? The big groups don't have this issue. Again, they are able to set up services around, they have access to that, right? The idea, but what CoverFlex is doing, what Trova is doing, is basically looking at the journey, fixing the journey, and making sure that you are actually building a marketplace. It's a spider web here, right? How do I interact? Payroll is an interesting thing. For instance, payroll might be the link between what CoverFlex is doing and what Trova is doing, for instance, right? If one day the need of the user is to cover with a software the payroll part of the processes in the organization, we might be able to integrate that, or we might be able to find another type of marketplace covering this journey. And this is what you are going to build with CoverFlex, right? We will have a link towards these new chain in the network, right? So I think this is what's happening in the market. There is an ecosystem, a marketplace, which is currently being built around the entrepreneur, and that's, for me, that's perfect, because this is our vision to fuel the customer's journey, the entrepreneur journey, and to help him during this journey.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, and Matteo is the proof of how synergies and how connection between entrepreneurs works. When it comes to the two main points why, in my opinion, a synergy between two providers like us, even if we are not yet partnering, so we are really here talking about something that can happen, by the way, is one, because, as you said, we talk not just to the same audience, that is SMBs, but also to the same person, sometimes to the same decision maker. So sometimes it's really making efficiency. If two players that are trusted, that go well together, that found a way to not overlap, but really be complementary on the market, can talk to the same person, there is also saving in time. If I'm an HR manager or a CFO, and I get presented a solution by multiple players, so we're not talking about us going separately, but presenting this need, I benefit of this scale. So I benefit also my time. I have less time to invest in decision making. But as I said, the assumption is that the trust between the companies, the level of smartness between the companies, the approach, the all-in-one solution approach, the way you talk. So the entrepreneurs needs to talk the same language. So one is, for me, synergy in general and efficiency in the synergy, not just for the, let's say, the target, that is the SMB, but also the person you speak to. So yes, I do see, and it's really, and these can also help in building the need. For example, someone can have one need but not the other, and then understand the other need. So you are generating more potential revenues, talking in results and money perspective. So this combination, this combo can be also useful in doing new business, for example, for companies.
It's incredible because I wish we could have like a flashback and being some of the conversations that I was in like 15 years ago when the whole movement was starting, and you were talking with the financial institutions, and I clearly remember, I will not mention, who and in which country, but two banks didn't want to be in the same conference, sponsoring the same conference because they thought that they didn't want to be associated. So we really, and I'm super happy that it happened. We are shifting in a place where it's not the guys who are actually delivering the businesses, but the client is at the center, right? So it doesn't really matter, what the ultimate goal is the journey of your client, and if in order to make that journey optimized, you need to talk with your competitor or with someone with whom potentially you will share a customer list. So be it. Guys, thanks a lot. Super quick, let's end up with where can our auditors know more, like your website, and your profile will be shared on LinkedIn. So very quickly, John, how people can find more information about you and Rawa?
Rova.com, Rova app on Instagram or Twitter. We are live with a beta version for Portuguese entrepreneurs since beginning of January this year, and public launch in April. Right, so we still have a bit of space for the beta phase, and if not, you can indeed put your email on the waitlist in our website. We have a bit more than 10,000 entrepreneurs on the waitlist. Right, so if you want to put your name, we will contact you right when you are ready to launch. Thank you.
Great. Chiara, you're launching in Italy soon, right?
Yes. So both potential clients and merchants can already find us in coverflex.com. So there's a chance either to become a merchant in our network, that's super easy, but also start booking early birds adoption of the card as a client. He's already working on the site. We are doing an official launch in the next weeks, but yes, I mean, I think this is actually the first real communication about us being live.
Oh wow!
We are happy. we are happy to support, and I wish you like great luck in both of your journeys. So thank you very much for being with us. Guys, that's Breaking Bank, episode 158. Thank you for being with us, and that's a wrap.
Thanks for listening to Breaking Banks Europe, a Provoke Media podcast in cooperation with FinTech Stage. Don't forget to tweet us out, shout out, or post to the team at Breaking Banks EU on Twitter. If there's something or someone you'd like to hear on our cast, let us know. See you next week on Breaking Banks Europe.